Today, we're going to cover the news. So this article comes from hypebeast.com. It says, Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs have a 20-minute chat in AI-powered podcast. Okay, so artificial intelligence has allowed us to simulate all kinds of situations through computer systems. Oh, I know where we're going with this, bringing back people from the dead. Some of its main applications are language processing and speech recognition. And now through Play.ht and Podcast AI, we're actually able to see how far the technology has come by experiencing a conversation with somebody who is not even on Earth anymore. We've done a couple things with character AI where it's like talk with Socrates or like talk with Wonder Woman, and Podcast AI fascinates me. Is this a podcasting platform where it's not real? Welcome to Podcast AI, a podcast that is entirely generated by artificial intelligence. Every week we explore a new topic in depth, and listeners can suggest topics or even guests for a host. Dude, I did not think I was going to find this service in the news today. Oh, that's genius. What did I think of that? Why didn't I do that? Guys, hit subscribe. I need to make a little bit of money to build some of this stuff. Like, I can't keep losing money on this YouTube channel, but that is a cool idea. I mean, we all know that like real-time, generated, on-the-fly audio and video, it's all coming down the pipeline. I just don't want to miss it. I want to build a company that can take advantage of that. So Lex Fridman interviews Richard Feynman, but Richard Feynman has passed away. Richard Feynman was an American theoretical physicist known for his work in the path integral formulation of quantum mechanics, the theory of quantum electrodynamics, and the physics of superfluidity and supercooled liquid helium, as well as his work in particle physics, for which he proposed the parton model. Like, come on, man. There's no way when I die I'm going to have like a cool about section on Wikipedia like that. He passed away in 1988, and having Lex Fridman interview him post-mortem, is that what they say, is pretty cool. I would love to hear Lex interview him, so let's see how that works.
In grammar school, high school, and college, the main point for me was music.
You were always interested in science and mathematics. When did you develop that curiosity?
Okay, so I know Lex Fridman's voice, and that was a little bit grainy, but it did sound like him.
When did it first ignite? Do you remember any particular events? Or was it just a continuous process?
No, I think it was continuous. But I can tell you one thing. When I was 5, my mother took me to the city of Washington to see the World's Fair. There were all kinds of exhibits, and one of them was by a company promoting safety. There were 3 jugs, and you had to figure out how to get the water from one jug to another without using your hands. They had all kinds of mechanisms you could use, pulleys, and you could push a rod in, and things like that. So I got the answer and won a prize. A pearl. I still remember that day. It was a very exciting experience for me. I thought it looked easy, but it was hard.
I don't know, man. I wonder if it's a little bit like rambly. I've only listened to this one little clip. I should listen to the whole thing. But I don't know if you would get the insights that you actually would from watching like the Feynman lectures. By the way, just for reference, here's what his real voice sounded like.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make any difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make any difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
Look at that guy, man. He's like a great professor. You can just tell. Kids love him. Let's just click on this Joe Rogan interview.
Stuff is much more important than, philosophy as it is classically understood. There were 2 things that were really interesting about what was accomplished and what happened on the Indian subcontinent. One of them is the spiritual basis for life and the whole acceptance of the spiritual basis for life.
Man, that does sound like something Steve Jobs might have gone into. And there's enough training data to mimic their voices and probably enough text that they've written to train something like GPT-3. Okay, so at least from this HyperBeast article, it says that it does move into real conversation, touching on faith, tech companies, drugs, and at one point, the AI-generated job uses the analogy of a car where you have to buy all 4 wheels separately to Adobe's services. Dude, come on, man. You're still hung up on Adobe? You know what I mean? That's the thing is, though, like all that, that was the era. These were some of his competitors back then. But yeah, I mean, it's not like Apple even thinks of Adobe much anymore. But yeah, at the time, I understand Steve Jobs was thinking about their business model a lot. It's fun. It's cool. If you guys are in a podcast, of course, we have our own Be Curious podcast. We've got a video coming up where we flirt with AI. It's going to be terrible and hilarious. We brought on this biologist that talked about how inorganic materials can kind of build up into organic life. It's still all humans, but if you guys want to, check out the Be Curious podcast. It says AI-driven robots are cooking your dinner. First, before we summarize the text, let's just see if there's any like cool robotic arms. Because looks like we are in luck. What is this? Some crazy robotic arm with a bowl? Definitely. Oh wow, yeah. Look at that flame underneath there. Chef extraordinaire. I'm still just impressed with how fast actuators can move sometimes. But honestly, it's the precision that has always been a problem. And yeah, with machine learning, we definitely can do some amazingly delicate and soft things. Oh, look at that one. Researchers use AI to protect whale sharks from extinction. Oh my God, that wasn't even on my list. Cut and paste from Fortune. Okay, so in summary, robot chefs are becoming more prevalent in the food industry, as they offer consistent results and can be easily programmed to create new dishes. Automation in the kitchen can also help reduce labor costs and free up humans for other tasks. All right, let's see if that's kind of what I get from it too. Your next Friday night pizza may be made by robot hands. Automated Chef, it's an AI-driven, voice-controlled pizza maker that is making its way to the Chicago-based regional pizza chain, Slice Factory. Okay, cool. So I don't know if you are near a Slice Factory, but if anyone is and they see this robot in action, please send me a video or make a comment or something. Tell me how the experience was. So the robotic chef monitors more than 1,200 parameters every microsecond. Sounds a lot better than a human. From managing food quality to the point of sales machine. When a customer places a pizza order, Pizzola will select, press, and stretch the dough and the sauce, cheese and the toppings, then cook, slice, and box the pizza to all of the customer's specified preferences. Because I'm always wondering what parts are still left of the humans and which parts aren't, but it's interesting that it's connected to the point of sales system because yeah, that's it, man. When it's like entirely robotic, there's a place here in Las Vegas where you can have a robot mix a drink for you and happens all automatically, and it's fascinating. I mean, it's just a glorified vending machine, but it is glorified. And of course, I'm always concerned about things like this in the long run because they're going to take so many jobs. But also, I feel like humans are so smart and capable. We should be maybe doing more knowledge work. I don't know. What's the point of a life where you just repeat every single day and you're on a conveyor belt type system? Like, people get burned out. So core to Sunkra's automated chef is artificial intelligence. Sunkra recruited a friend and a CTO, this guy Vijay Kodali, to employ machine learning for the robot's operating system. He calls it Yum OS. Okay, clever. And what they built is a robot that not only learns intellectually as a human would, but can pull from all 5 senses. Smell? Touch? I don't know about that. The robot chef can touch, smell, see, hear, and even taste. He can taste. Trying to think if I even have seen any kind of a sensor that if you put like food or sugar on it, it would know it, that isn't just like camera vision. Thanks to a tasting bar that mimics the human tongue. Oh my God, is this real? The senses send feedback to the operating system, creating a learning loop that's similar to a human's. It's as if the robot is constantly in culinary school class, but remembers every detail from the homework. So I thought we were probably getting into an article where it was just gonna be basically the precision of the machine is able to maybe dice an onion or something, and then it can follow kind of how to dump it into a scale and get the right amount of weight and like spread it out evenly on a pizza or something. But the fact that they created a bar that acts like a tongue, I mean, I guess I could see how you could train an AI on what something that tastes good is, putting the same things in people's mouths that you put on this bar, this piece of metal that somehow can collect data about what it's tasting. How can a robot taste? Okay, this other article from BBC News, according to the research, the robot tasted 9 different variations of scrambled eggs and tomatoes. To imitate tasting in their robot chef, researchers attached a probe which acts like a saltiness sensor to a robot arm. Using the probe, the robot tasted the dishes in a grid-like fashion, returning a reading in just a few seconds. It then produced a taste map of the different dishes. So a salt measure? I mean, I guess, isn't there only 6 senses, I think, on the tongue? So I guess maybe you just have like 6 probes that measure those things, and then they're each on a scale, and that's how you determine taste? That's right. And then food changes when you smell it and chew it. So we wanted to replicate a more realistic process of chewing and tasting in a robotic system, which should result in a tastier end product. When a robot is learning how to cook like any other cooks, it needs indications of how well it did. In our experiment, the robot can see the difference in the food as it's chewed, which improves its ability to taste. Like, what is it? You just like... Can we stick a camera in your mouth when you chew, and then we'll use that as our training data? Like what, maybe the robot like chews it up first and then like hands it over to the human like little baby birds or something, and then humans like us are like, yeah, that kind of tastes like something I've already chewed a little bit before I put it in my mouth. So it seems like this AI is not just programmed to make pizza, but it's also a little bit inventive. It can invent dishes as well, give it a list of ingredients, and it will pull from its knowledge of Chinese, Indian, Thai, and American cuisine to create, I guess, a unique meal. That's cool. Seems like it'd be hard to deliver on this promise, but I'm definitely like, if I was a venture capitalist, I'd be like, maybe. Like someone is going to solve this, but he seems like he's biting off a lot more than a normal entrepreneur could chew. So depends on how big this team is. All right, so his robot is a lease. I like that business model, $7,000 per month. Employees can easily run you $7,000 a month, especially if it could replace 2 or 3 of them. Even if it's not perfect, but it even cuts out some of the repetitive work, or even if just one person is, taking care of it, I could see this making sense. There will be a day when like a robotic, like hamburger maker, French fry maker is just going to make sense, and they're just going to manufacture them in mass and send them to all of some food chain, all the McDonald's is or whatever. And yeah, it's just going to be like, don't need people anymore, or need like a whole lot less of them. Okay, and here he's talking about needing to kind of be on that winning end of a virtuous cycle. So yeah, I mean, it's true. Like he gets $7,000 a month. He puts these robotic arms out. They help people. They constantly take that data about how the arms are being used, and they're kind of improving it. Then they're selling it again for the lease. Feels like this guy is on the right track. So AI-driven robots are cooking your next dinner, coming soon. Check this out on fortune.com. Okay, and the next article I wanted to talk about is from physics.org, and it is a new AI model which can accurately predict human response to novel drug compounds. All right, so first off, let's get the TLDR here. A new AI model called Code-AE can accurately predict efficacy of a new drug compound in humans. In tests, it was able to theoretically identify personalized drugs for over 9,000 patients that could better treat their conditions. The technique has the potential to significantly accelerate drug discovery and precision medicine. So precision medicine is a great topic. It's something I would love to cover in one of the essay style videos, because that's one of the things AI can do, is it can think about so many more variables. I mean, doctors, they usually have to kind of rely on general advice. They sit down with you, they ask you some questions, they know on average what works, they know your symptoms, and they think, okay, this is probably where I'll start, and then I'll kind of see what happens, I'll sort of tweak it. But the interesting thing about a future where AI can process much more than a human ever could is it can probably knock out a bunch of those variables and dismiss them right away, maybe either helping a doctor focus in on the ones that matter, or kind of honing him down a few paths, him or her, and then saying, hey, look, here's a diagnosis that it might be, here's another diagnosis it might be. They're different branches, but check them both out and see which direction your human instinct thinks is the right one to pursue. So the original paper was published in Nature Machine Intelligence, and the new model called Code-AE, so it definitely named the model correctly, can screen novel drug compounds to accurately predict efficacy in humans. Yep, that's pretty much what we got. 9,000 patients, the number it pulled was correct. Okay, so looks like we have a quote here from Dr. Wu, just like in Jurassic Park. Although many methods have been developed to utilize cell line screens for predicting clinical responses, their performances are unreliable due to data incongruity and discrepancies. I've been toying around with one of the videos coming up soon is about how AI feels like when it's applied to medicine, it's way closer than it probably is. There's so much more risk involved versus some of the other places you would put machine learning, even when it's not fully functional, to help it like iterate. You got to be so much more careful with patients and humans and health. Yeah, and also just with humans, it's also hard to collect massive amounts of health data that's uniform. There's just a problem with the hospital systems and the data collection systems, and then even individuals are just so unique in how the information is shared or collected that it's hard to get like a robust data set in the same way other machine learning problems can be solved. But at the end of the day, I do think drug discovery is going to go through a renaissance. Not quite yet, but after some of the other pillars fall, that one will be in there somewhere. Okay, our next article comes from News Aussie, I guess. News Aussie. So I've always liked AI. I've played around with machine learning and reinforcement learning as a hobby for a number of years and worked in tech, but it was really the moment where I thought, gosh, I really want to do like a YouTube channel and like focus on this and get deep in the weeds, when I started playing around with DALL-E and Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, which are all text-to-image model. Anytime I see kind of image generation from an AI, I'm intrigued. So first, let's go to GPT-3 and see if we can get a summary of the article. Do is probably the name of one of the artists or something. Do's work can be used to create images that look more like traditional art by adding human artistic expertise to the mix. All right, so it sounds like he's gonna augment one of the systems. So Do and her collaborators, looks like it's a woman, so sorry about that. Do and her collaborators created a new tool that allows people to control how much artistic expertise they want to add to the AI from a human-drawn sketch to a simple photo. So they're arguing that the entertainment value from these text-to-image models is demonstrated by the ever-expanding treasure trove of whimsical and random image serving as indirect portals to the brains of human designers. I agree with that. Do, Yillian Du. She's a PhD student at the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences and affiliate of MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, CSAIL for short. Recently developed a new method that makes models like DALL-E 2 more creative and have a better sense of understanding. Perfect next step. I think the same thing when I look at DALL-E 2, I'm like, oh, it's just like not creative. I mean, it tries to make like a stock photo, but like the eye will be like an inch too low from the other one, and it just like looks very uncanny valley. Okay, so here she's pointing out a pretty interesting fact about where the data sets we get originally from are kind of, I guess they're not tainted, but they are what they are, right? Like if you do a Google image search, you're going to expect a certain type of result, and that's the type of thing that the text-to-image generators are doing, but that's not always what we're imagining. Here she says, let's say a model has seen a lot of dog photos and it's trained so that when it gets a similar text input prompt like dog, it's able to generate a photo that looks very similar to the many dog pictures it's already seen. How this all works dates back to a very old class of models called energy-based models. I've never heard this term. Let's see what she says about it. Okay, so in energy-based models, an energy landscape over an image is constructed, which is used to simulate the physical dissipation to generate images. When you drop a dot of ink onto water and it dissipates, right? I think about this with entropy a lot, like increasing disorder. For example, at the end, you get this uniform texture. But if you're going to try to reverse this process, Stable Diffusion, the diffusion process is taking that randomness and kind of slowly, iteratively forming it into an image. You gradually get the original ink dot back into the water again. Basically, she's describing breakthrough that started making a lot of these text-to-image generators work. Okay, so here she says something interesting. You can say that these models are really trained on the creativity of people. Yeah, that's very true. We're not talking about artificial general intelligence. At this point, we're talking about something that can create or sort of mimic the style of a human. And yeah, and in fact, it's just that. With Stable Diffusion or any of these text-to-image generators, if you write in Disney style or Picasso style, it will basically take that whole set of things it could have imagined and put them into the subset that would only fit somebody who is looking at that artist's style. Okay, so this is a really interesting question. I'm glad he asked it. When you think about a text-to-image generator, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, whatever, you type in something and she's saying like some blocks that are either broken apart or stacked together, a tree next to a lake or not next to a lake. Does it actually have some sense of what a lake is and where a tree belongs? Is it like a human where we can deduce that? And it's probably not. A few people kind of say it is, and they're kind of like more fringe, and I don't know if they're right yet. although I think that there is kind of a sliding scale of when that actually will happen with AGI, but as of right now, I think it's just the stable diffusion process is just kind of, here's a bunch of random noise, and then it kind of like cleans it up into something that would make sense from all the images it's seen before, not necessarily putting an internal representation of a tree and an ocean and how they might fit together and why they would be next to each other. It's not quite like that yet. So a great example, she points out, is if you put a fork on top of a plate, that happens all the time. There's a bunch of images of plates with forks on them that they've trained the systems on, so it can generate that because it's seen it before. But if you say, put a plate on top of a fork, it's very easy for us to imagine what this would look like, but because the system hasn't been trained on a bunch of images that were labeled plate on top of fork, it's not there yet. So that's why it's like, I don't think it has the idea of a fork and like why we would have a fork to eat as humans and like why we use plates to like keep the food off the table and how one could be placed on top of the other and how it would look. Yeah, this example, an astronaut riding a horse, comes up all the time, but they always have a lot of trouble imagining a horse riding an astronaut, which is, I can do it in my head, although it took me a little bit longer, I think, too. But I guess you'd have to imagine like an astronaut in a spacesuit bent over on all fours, and then a horse like smaller than proportionally smaller than the astronaut, like sitting on top of it. So, it's not going to be able to be like, oh, can you give me a horse riding an astronaut? But it can definitely do an astronaut riding a horse. All right, so if you guys want more, it's called How AI Image Generators Could Help Robots from News Aussie. So thanks again, and we'll catch you next time for a AI summarized news update.